The front door clicked shut behind her with a softness that felt almost deliberate, as if the night itself didn't want to disturb what waited inside. Clara Whitfield slipped off her heels in the hallway, wincing slightly as the quiet wrapped around her. It was later than she had planned again. The faint scent of wine still lingered on her breath, mixed with the citrus perfume she'd reapplied before leaving the restaurant. Her phone buzzed once in her hand, a leftover message from one of her co-workers, but she ignored it and dropped the device into her bag. The apartment was dim, lit only by the warm, amber glow of a single lamp in the living room. Noah was sitting there, exactly where she expected him to be, except something about it felt off. He wasn't watching television. He wasn't scrolling through his phone. He wasn't pacing the way he sometimes did when he was irritated. He was just sitting, quiet, present. "Hey," Clara said lightly, stepping into the room as if nothing unusual had happened. She draped her coat over the chair and smoothed down her hair. "You're still awake." Noah looked at her. Not sharply, not angrily, just looked. "Yeah," he said. That was it. No follow-up question. No hint of accusation. No, "Where were you?" Or "Why didn't you answer your phone?" Clara blinked, slightly thrown off by the simplicity of his response. Usually by now, there would be a tension in the air, something unspoken but loud enough to feel. Tonight there was only quiet. She let out a small laugh, trying to fill the space. "Don't look at me like that. It wasn't that late. We just stayed a little longer after dinner. You know how it is." Noah nodded once. "I do." Again, nothing else. Clara moved toward the kitchen, opening cabinets, pouring herself a glass of water she didn't really want. The sound of the tap running felt louder than usual, like it was echoing off something invisible. "You could have texted," she added casually. "If you were worried." "I wasn't worried," Noah said. There was no edge in his voice. No frustration. Just a statement. She turned slightly, leaning against the counter, studying him now. "Okay, then what? You look like you've been sitting here all night." "I have," he replied. Clara let out another small laugh, this one thinner. "All right, that's a little dramatic, don't you think?" Noah didn't respond. That was when the first flicker of discomfort settled in her chest. It wasn't the silence itself. It was the way it didn't feel temporary. Usually, silence between them came with weight, with emotion pressing behind it. This felt empty. Like something had already been said, and she just hadn't heard it yet. She walked back into the living room, slower this time, and sat on the edge of the couch across from him. "Okay," she said, softer now. "What's going on?" Noah rested his hands together, fingers loosely intertwined. He looked at them for a moment before lifting his gaze back to her. "Nothing's going on," he said. Clara frowned. "Noah, I mean it," he added. "Nothing new is going on." The way he said it, calm, measured, made something tighten in her chest. She tilted her head, trying to read him. "So, you're not upset?" He considered the question, not answering immediately. "I used to be," he said finally. Clara blinked. "Used to be." He nodded once. A small, uneasy laugh escaped her. "Okay, now you're just confusing me. What does that even mean?" Noah leaned back slightly in his chair, his expression unchanged. "It means," he said, "this isn't about tonight." Clara felt a brief rush of relief. "Oh my God, Noah, if this is about me being late again." "It's not about you being late," he interrupted gently. His tone wasn't sharp, but it stopped her anyway. She pressed her lips together, irritation flickering now. "Then what is it about?" There was a pause, long enough for the air between them to feel heavier. Noah looked at her, not searching, not questioning, just seeing. "It's about everything that looks exactly like tonight," he said. Clara's brows furrowed. "That doesn't make sense." "It does," he replied quietly. "You just haven't been listening." Something in his voice, something steady, almost distant, made her sit up straighter. "I am listening," she said, a hint of defensiveness creeping in. You're the one not saying anything. Noah exhaled softly, not out of frustration, but as if he had expected that answer. I've said a lot, he said. Just not tonight. Clara shook her head, confused now more than anything. Okay, then say it again. Because clearly I missed something. He studied her for a moment, not with anger, not even disappointment, with a kind of quiet clarity that made her chest feel tight. I did say it again, he said. And again. And again. Clara opened her mouth to respond, but the words didn't come as easily this time. A strange feeling began to settle in, a subtle shift she couldn't quite name. Noah leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on his knees. You remember last month, he said, when I asked you if we could have dinner together? Just us. No phones. No work. Clara frowned, thinking. Yeah, I think so. You said you were too busy, he continued. Which was fine. I understood. I was busy, she said quickly. I know, he replied. The absence of argument in his tone made her feel oddly defensive anyway. And the week after that, he went on, when I told you I felt like we weren't really connecting anymore. Clara shifted slightly. Noah, we talked about that. I said things would calm down once work settled. They didn't, he said. Again, not harsh, just factual. She hesitated. It's just been a stressful time. It's always been a stressful time, he said gently. The words landed differently than she expected. Not like an accusation, more like a conclusion. Clara looked at him, searching for the version of Noah she was used to, the one who got frustrated, who raised his voice just enough to show he cared. But this version, this calm, steady version, it didn't feel easier, felt worse. I don't understand why you're acting like this is something big, she said, her voice softer now, uncertain. We've had rough patches before. We always figure it out. Noah nodded slowly. We used to, he said. The way he said it, past tense, final, made something in her chest tighten again. She forced a small smile, trying to pull things back to normal. Okay, so we'll figure it out again. That's what we do. Noah didn't smile back. Instead, he looked at her with a kind of calm that felt unfamiliar. I don't think we will, he said. Clara's breath caught just for a second, not because of what he said, but because of how certain he sounded. And for the first time that night, a quiet, unsettling thought slipped into her mind. This wasn't just another argument. Something had already changed. Clara let out a short breath, almost a laugh, though there was no humor in it. Okay, she said, shaking her head slightly. Now you're being dramatic. Noah didn't react. That was the part that unsettled her the most. Normally, a comment like that would have sparked something. A sigh, a defensive remark, at least a shift in posture. But he just sat there, steady and unmoved, like her words no longer had the weight they used to carry. Clara leaned back into the couch, crossing her arms loosely, trying to regain control of the conversation. If this is about me being busy, she said, then just say that. Don't make it into something it's not. Noah looked at her for a moment before speaking. It is what it is, he said quietly. I'm just finally seeing it clearly. Clara frowned. Seeing what clearly? There was a pause. Then Noah stood up. The movement caught her off guard, not because it was sudden, but because it felt purposeful. He walked past her without urgency, heading toward the bedroom. Clara turned in her seat, watching him go. Noah! He didn't answer. A small knot formed in her stomach as she listened to the soft sound of the closet door sliding open. For a second, she stayed where she was, telling herself not to overthink it. He's just grabbing something. Maybe he needs space. Maybe he's cooling off. That's what this is. It's nothing new. But then came the sound of a suitcase being pulled from the shelf. Clara sat up straighter. Noah! She called again, louder this time. Still no answer. The knot in her stomach tightened. She stood and walked toward the bedroom, slower than she meant to, as if delaying what she might find. When she reached the doorway, she stopped. Noah was standing by the bed, the suitcase open in front of him. He was folding his clothes, not hurriedly, not angrily, but with a kind of calm precision that felt almost surreal. For a moment Clara just stared. Then she let out a small, incredulous laugh. "Okay, what is this?" she said, leaning against the doorframe. "Are you serious right now?" Noah didn't look up. "Yeah." That simple answer sent a flicker of irritation through her. "You're packing a suitcase," she said, as if he might not have noticed. "Because I came home late." He placed a shirt neatly into the case before finally glancing at her. "I'm packing a suitcase," he said, "because I'm leaving." The words hung in the air, quiet but heavy. Clara blinked, then shook her head immediately. "No, you're not." "I am." She let out another laugh, this one sharper. "Noah, come on. You always do this. You get upset, you say things you don't mean, and then tomorrow everything's fine." Noah zipped a small compartment before speaking again. "I'm not upset," he said. "That's even worse," she replied quickly. "You're acting like this doesn't even matter." He paused then, his hand resting lightly on the edge of the suitcase. "It matters," he said. "It just doesn't hurt the same way anymore." Clara's expression shifted, confusion creeping in beneath the irritation. "What does that even mean?" she asked. Noah straightened slightly, finally giving her his full attention. "It means," he said, "I've already gone through the part where it hurt." Clara frowned. "Gone through it when?" He held her gaze. "Over the past year," he said. The words didn't land all at once. At first, they felt distant, like something she hadn't quite processed correctly. Then, slowly, they began to settle. "That's not fair," she said, her voice tightening. "You can't just decide something like that without me." Noah's expression didn't change. "I didn't," he replied. "I tried to decide it with you." Clara shook her head, frustration rising now. "No, you didn't. If you felt like this, you should have said something." "I did," he said. "When?" she pressed. He didn't hesitate. "Every time I told you I felt like I wasn't a priority," he said. "Every time I asked you to be present when we were together. Every time I said I missed you, even when you were right in front of me." Clara opened her mouth to respond, but stopped. 'Cause she remembered. Not clearly, not vividly, but enough. Moments she had brushed off. Conversations she had half listened to while checking her phone. Apologies she had given quickly, assuming they were enough. "It wasn't like that," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. Noah didn't argue. "I know you didn't mean for it to be like that," he said. "But it still was." Clara stepped further into the room, her arms dropping to her sides. "So what, that's it?" she asked. "You're just going to leave because things haven't been perfect?" Noah shook his head slightly. "I'm leaving because they stopped being something we were both trying to fix." "That's not true," she said quickly. "I've been trying." He looked at her, not accusingly, but with a quiet honesty that made her chest tighten again. "When?" he asked. The question wasn't aggressive. It was simple, and that made it harder to answer. Clara hesitated. I've just been busy. You know how work has been." Noah nodded once. "I do," he said. "And I kept telling myself that. For a long time." He picked up another shirt, folding it carefully. "But eventually," he continued, "being busy stopped explaining it." Clara felt something shift inside her, something closer to unease than anger now. "You're overthinking this," she said, softer, almost pleading. "We just need to talk. We can fix it." Noah placed the shirt into the suitcase and closed the lid halfway, as if preparing for the end of something. "I used to believe that," he said. Clara's throat felt dry. "Used to," she repeated. He nodded. "I kept thinking if I explained it better, if I was more patient, if I waited a little longer." He paused briefly. "But nothing changed." Clara took another step toward him. "So you're just giving up?" she asked. "No," he said. "I stopped holding on to something that wasn't there anymore." Her chest tightened at that. "It is there," she insisted. "We're here, we're talking." We're in the same room, he corrected gently. That's not the same thing. The words hit harder than she expected. Clara felt a flicker of panic now. Small but undeniable. This wasn't going the way their arguments usually did. There was no back and forth. No escalation. No moment where emotions spilled over and then settled again. There was just this steady, quiet distance growing between them. You're making a mistake, she said, her voice unsteady now. Noah looked at her for a long moment. I thought that too, he said. For a while. Clara swallowed. And now? She asked. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached for the zipper of the suitcase and pulled it closed slowly, the sound cutting through the silence of the room. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm. Now I think staying would be the mistake. Something in Clara's chest dropped. Not sharply, but steadily. Like something she hadn't realized she was holding onto had just slipped away. The silence Noah left behind wasn't loud. Didn't echo. Didn't scream. Just stayed. First she thought it would pass. The way everything else always had. A few hours turned into a night. The night stretched into morning. And still, the apartment felt unfamiliar, like it no longer recognized her as someone who belonged there. His side of the bed was untouched. Perfectly smooth. Cold. She lay on her back, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment over and over again. I stopped feeling like your partner a long time ago. You don't lose someone when they leave. You lose them when you stop seeing them. Thank you for making this clear. Each sentence landed differently now. Heavier. Sharper. More real. At some point she sat up, her chest tightening with a slow, creeping panic she couldn't shake anymore. She grabbed her phone. No messages. She opened their chat. Scrolled. There it was. Dozens of moments she had once skimmed past now stood out like flashing warnings. Can we talk tonight? I feel like we're drifting. Do you even want to spend time together anymore? Hey, I miss you. Back then she had read them quickly. Responded with short replies. Or sometimes not at all. Now, each message felt like something she had quietly stepped over. Something fragile she had broken without even noticing. Her throat tightened. She typed his name. Hovered over the call button. What would she even say? Come back. I didn't mean it. I'll change. The words felt weak. Like trying to fix a crack in glass that had already shattered. She put the phone down slowly. For the first time, she wasn't thinking about how to explain herself. She was thinking about how much she had missed. Days passed. Then a week. The apartment changed. Not physically. Emotionally. The small things became unbearable. His mug still sat in the cabinet. The one he always used in the mornings. She reached for it once out of habit. Then froze. Put it back. The couch where he used to sit, waiting for her, now looked like a place that had been abandoned. The quiet dinners. The late nights. The empty space beside her. Everything started to connect. Not as isolated moments, but as a pattern. A long, slow unraveling she had refused to see. She remembered the nights he waited. The times he asked her to stay. The way he would look at her. Not angry, not demanding, just hopeful. And how often she had brushed it aside. Because she thought it didn't matter. Because she thought he would always be there. Because she thought love, once given, stayed. No matter how little you fed it. That belief now felt like the biggest lie she had ever lived by. 2 weeks later, she found something she hadn't noticed before. It was tucked inside a drawer. A folded piece of paper. Her name written on it. She frowned, unfolding it carefully. It wasn't a letter in the dramatic sense. No long paragraphs. No emotional declarations. Just a few lines. I tried to stay where I felt invisible. I tried to love louder, hoping you'd hear me. But love isn't supposed to feel like begging. I hope one day you understand what I couldn't make you see. Noah. Her hands trembled slightly. Not because of what it said, but because of what it confirmed. This hadn't been sudden. This hadn't been impulsive. This had been building. For months, maybe longer. And she hadn't seen any of it. Or worse, she had seen it, and chosen not to look closely. A quiet tear slipped down her cheek. Not dramatic, not uncontrollable, just steady, like the realization itself. Time kept moving, 'cause it always does. But something inside her had shifted permanently. She started noticing things she never paid attention to before. Other couples, small moments, the way people listened to each other, the way they paused, the way they showed up. She realized how much of a relationship wasn't built on big gestures, but on small, consistent presence. And how easy it was to slowly disappear from someone's life while still technically being in it. She had mastered that, without even trying. One evening she sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker on. Her phone rested beside her, still silent, not because he couldn't reach out, but because he chose not to. And for the first time, she understood why. It wasn't about anger, or punishment, or pride. It was about peace. Noah hadn't left to hurt her. He had left to stop hurting himself. That truth settled deep inside her. Uncomfortable, unavoidable, final. She leaned her head against the glass, her reflection staring back at her. For so long, she had believed something simple. That patience meant someone would always stay. That silence meant everything was okay. That love could survive without attention, without effort, without presence. But now she knew better. Patience has limits. Silence has meaning. And love leaves when it stops being seen. She closed her eyes for a moment. And in that quiet space, she finally admitted something she had been avoiding since that night. She hadn't lost Noah when he walked out the door. She lost him long before that. In every ignored message, in every delayed response, in every moment she chose everything else over him. That was the real goodbye. The one she never noticed, until it was too late. The room was still. The world outside kept moving. And somewhere out there, Noah was no longer waiting. Not hoping, not asking, just living, without her. She picked up her phone one last time, opened their chat, read through it again, slowly, carefully, like someone finally learning a language they had ignored for years. Then, without typing a word, she locked the screen, set it down, and sat in the quiet, not expecting anything to change, not hoping for a second chance, just understanding, finally. Because some endings don't come with shouting, or anger, or chaos. Some endings arrive quietly, with calm voices, clear eyes, and a simple thank you, before the door closes for the last time.